Good morning everybody. So one thing we have managed to do this week is to start our drainage plan. So behind me you can see the drain running through my neighbour's grass field. So what we've done is we've picked up a wet spot that we struggled with for a couple of years. It's now showing up on Google Maps, which is a bad indication that it's kind of consistent, always there. We think it's a spring. So we've picked up that wet spot and we've run it to a neighbour. He's trying to establish a mill ponds. That's his aspiration. So we are picking up our springs to help feed his mill ponds, so hopefully we can provide him with a bit more water. So here you can see we've actually taken the gravel or the stone right to the surface in order to try and get as much of the water as possible. With springs they're a little bit difficult, they can move, so what we've tried to do here is bring the stone right to the surface, and then this is the main drain heading off across the field, and then it takes a small kink and it picks up the wet spot where the muck spreader got stuck in the spring. So hopefully going forward we've got a more productive field. So I just walked up a little bit further. You can see this is where the split happens, so it's running towards these houses and then it kinks off to the left here and runs up to the wet spot, which is up there somewhere. So, and interestingly, sort of the chalk hills are right behind us up there, you can see. And I just wanted to say, I was a little bit worried that we might hit the chalk, but as you can see, this is all clay, but then suddenly up there it goes all white. We obviously got down to chalk level. So it's very unusual for you to suffer drainage issues so close to the chalk hills. That's not what we're trying to worry about. We are worrying about trying to pick up springs. So this is the spring line here, and if you could crouch down, look at this soil. Just dig around a bit and see, look, still make it into a ball. Thank you, nose. Here. So you can still make it into a sausage. So it's obviously got high clay content, and that's basically what we're struggling with, the point at which the clay meets the chalk. And because the clay is impermeable, the water can't rise to the surface, and so where the clay meets the chalk, there's a line, and hence the expression spring line, all the way across the hills at the same place. So this point down here is just one of those spring points. So harvest going well. I just came out here to scout this crop. Well, we're having a little bit of trouble with the spring barley and identifying when it's ready to harvest. So I'll just show you what we're struggling with. So as you pan across the field, it's looking quite fit. The issue with barley is when it comes to sort of this phase, when the heads of the barley crink right over, then it becomes susceptible to brackling, where this bit snaps off and then falls on the ground. So if we look at the bottom here, you can see, other than the brack grass, there's no heads on the ground yet, so we haven't quite reached that point, which is good. However, what we are struggling with this year is these little fellas. So in here you can see these are late tilled barley now, and there's plenty of them. So the problem is that you can see these heads are really beginning to go over well, and this, something like this guy, is what you're watching for. These, or him, he's ready to fall off, so that's quite ready. And yet this is a good, well, let's see how far away. If we take one off, you can still pinch it with your finger, it's so soft. So it's probably 2 weeks off even. So we are forecast some very high temperatures And so we're just trying to pick out our timing to identify when best to come to this crop. We can combine these heads and they make up weights and add moisture, but before we lose barley to brackling where it snaps off. So this is the famous Hills block, and for once it's looking pretty good. So I spoke earlier about the problems we were having in spring barley with secondary tillers, but really that is nothing next to the issues we're having with our spring oats. So this is a field of Elian spring oats that we're growing on a gluten-free contract for Glebe Farm, and I just wanted to show you what a mix we're getting. So these, let's take a nice yellow one. So these were the original crop. The yellow is the original crop, and if we go down into the base, you will actually see that you've got more green coming out of one plant than you have yellow. So really the plant has made a real effort to throw more heads up, but it's left this mix of green and yellow, which is going to be a real challenge at harvest. Oats are a very fragile crop, easily shed. Look on the ground now, we haven't got any shed oats yet. We actually went through this last week with a fungicide to try and control crown rust in the oats as a very late fungicide. It has the effect, it doesn't seem to affect yield, but it does affect bushel weight and quality, which is very relevant for the human consumption market. So the question next will be whether we come back and try and glyphosate this crop off to give it a consistent finish, or whether how long do we hold on to these green tillers in order to take them to harvest. Obviously, going back to that plant we've just had a look at, there is a lot of yield potential in the green, possibly more yield in the green than there is in the yellow. So we're probably better off holding for the green plants to come to maturity, but it's certainly a tricky decision. With thunderstorms forecast, we took the decision on a very hot 30-degree day to combine some spring barley which still had green heads and dry the crop rather than lose yield to brackling. Whilst in the cab with Ed, we took the opportunity to run through some of the auto-maintain functions of the S-Series combine, which are used to target grain losses and grain quality performance.
Go to grain, which for the crop is looking quite tidy. I'd said that's one of the better readings I've had today.
And what does the blue show it?
The blue, this shows that the fan speed is being adjusted by the onboard computer, which I've turned on. So auto maintain function is alternating a few of the features, so I can look through the history. So actively, he's completed these actions in the last half hour, which are mainly inclination changes to adjust to a camber in the field.
It's also worth saying how impressed we've been with the K2 push trailer. We've taken the greedy boards off for harvest, and it comfortably takes 2 tanks off the John Deere combine.
Every single day I'm gonna make something great. That's my way. Every single day I'm gonna make
So this is our very wet pile of malting barley, and the issue, as we showed you in the video, is green grains mixed in with ripe yellow ones, and they are fit. So what we're trying to do is we are just sucking air through it as fast as we can, and then in the hope that these grains harden, and then we will put them through the dryer. So we'll see if we manage to save the grain and if we manage to get malting on it.